Are you sick and tired of working for somebody else? Before reading this book, I was doomed to work for the big boss forever. I worked 80 hours a week for 2 years, slaving away for corporate America before quitting my job and jumping full-time into real estate investing. This one book is what allowed me to realize that I can have freedom through real estate and was the catalyst to the journey I am on today. In this video, I'm gonna give you 4 takeaways from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and how you can change your perspective from retiring at 65 to finding financial freedom before the age of 30. Aloha, my name is Stacey Johnson. I'm a real estate investor who turned negative 30,000 on her first flip to over 300,000 in 2022 through flipping and wholesaling real estate in one of the most competitive markets in America, Honolulu, Hawaii. Let's jump right into it. Here are the 4 takeaways from Rich Dad Poor Dad. Failure is a part of success. Number 2, instead of saying I can't afford it, ask yourself, how can you afford it? Number 3, most people work for money, but the rich people make money work for them. Number 4, when first getting a job, don't focus on how much you can earn, focus on how much you can learn. Realize that you don't have to work until you're the age of 65 and that you can find financial freedom through real estate. Number 1, failure is a part of the process. When I first got started in real estate, I was working 80 hours a week, slaving my life away for somebody else. And I realized through this book that I needed to get into real estate because the top 1% in the world do real estate. And when I jumped into this journey, I knew that flipping houses was super risky. But I decided to jump in it anyways because I knew that if I lost all of my money through real estate on that first flip, I was just gonna call this my master's of real estate. I ended up going to a 4-year university to get a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and that in itself cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so if I'm able to take that education and stand on the platform that I was in that engineering job, then I can take this however much money I'm gonna lose and use that as my master's of real estate. And in this case, I ended up losing $30,000, and I was able to take that lesson and reflect on everything that I learned through that flip and go and repeat the process again without making those mistakes. And because of that, because I failed early, I was able to turn that negative $30,000 flip into making over $300,000 last year through the same method, flipping and wholesaling real estate. When you think that failing puts you at a disadvantage, what I'm gonna say to you is to fail quickly. You wanna make mistakes as quick as you can so that you can learn quicker than most people. Because if you're not making mistakes, then you're probably not trying. And that $30,000 loss was a huge reason why I was able to make 10x that in this last year. My number 1 lesson that I learned from that was that I needed to get a coach or a mentor. So when I decided to get into real estate investing in Hawaii, where the houses are over $1 million, I jumped straight into the most expensive program at Wealthy Investor, and through their accountability, coaching, and resources, I was able to 10x that initial investment that I made and make over $300,000 last year. And that takes me to point number 2. Instead of saying I can't afford it, ask yourself how you can afford it. When I first moved back to Hawaii after working in California, I ended up just quitting my job and jumping full-time into real estate. I didn't really have much savings, and all the savings that I had, I ended up investing into a coaching program. Because of that, I had no car. So when I came to Hawaii, I had to figure out how I was going to drive a car. I remember buying this super old RAV4 that had this fat dent in the back, and it didn't even have like an electronic key. I had to plug my key into the door every single time I wanted to get into it. And every time I went on these appointments to buy sellers' houses, I was so embarrassed by the fact that I had to put my key inside the door that I had to ask myself, dude, I have no money to go buy a nicer car. How can I afford it? And so I ended up going to the dealership, and I thought through this process and said, okay, I need to figure out how I can get a car for free. And so guess what I did? I ended up going to the dealership that day, and I walked off the dealership with 2 vehicles. Now, why in the heck would I do that? is because when I went there, I realized that I could rent out one of the cars on Turo. At the time, it was in the middle of the pandemic and there was a huge rental car shortage because all of the Hertz companies and rental car companies ended up selling off their whole fleet during the pandemic when tourism was shut down. Now that tourism opened back up, all these rental car companies had 0 cars, and that presented a perfect opportunity for me to get a car for free. So I ended up buying 2 cars, one of them being a Toyota Corolla and the other being a RAV4. And I ended up taking that Toyota Corolla and putting it on Turo and renting it out for up to $145 per day. That allowed me to pay for not only the Corolla payment, but also the RAV4 payment. And how did I even get a down payment to go buy these 2 cars? I put down the lowest amount possible, and the only way I was able to do that was I sold that little RAV4 that I bought for $1,000, ended up selling it for $3K and used that $3K to put down on the 2 vehicles. This allowed me to drive around a brand new RAV4 for free. And this is a perfect example of asking yourself, how can I afford it, instead of telling yourself that you can't afford it. Now that takes me to point number 3. Most people work for money, but the rich people make money work for them. Rich people focus on acquiring assets that produce them income, just like that vehicle I was talking about. Whereas most people will get a job, they'll go trade their time for money and then take that money and go buy what's called a liability. If I went to go buy just a flat out vehicle, the one RAV4 that I drove, and I was just having to pay for it every single month without it making me any money, that is what most people do, and that's what's called buying bad debt. Instead, I focused on how I could use that money that I earned from working previously and make my money work for me by putting it on Turo and having that money come in so I could have 2 vehicles. And this is exactly what the rich people do. Not only do they do this with cars, they also do this with real estate. Real estate is the biggest place where most of these wealthy people put their money and end up having these rental properties that pay them every single month. So if you have a job and you are looking to make more passive income and have money work for you instead, rental properties are a great way to start accumulating some wealth and some passive income. That takes me to point number 4, and that's when you first get a job, focus on working to learn instead of working to earn. Most people get a job and they think, I need to make the most money possible, instead of focusing on what skills that job actually gives them. I think about when people go into the military, a lot of the skills that you learn in the military, it may apply to outside of the military, but a lot of people focus purely on the fact that it's going to pay them a lot of money. And then when they end up getting out of the military, they realize that a lot of the military industry standards don't actually apply in real life. And they end up having to get like a DoD job or something. Most people focus on how much money they can get, but instead, what if you focus on how much you can learn? If you want to get into real estate investing and you instead go work for an experienced investor as an assistant, you can probably learn so much more than how much you can earn. My assistant, for example, he knew that he wanted to provide me a ton of value so that he can come work for me and learn all that I knew about real estate investing and kind of fast track his success. He may have not made a lot of money, but he learned the valuable skills like sales, marketing, project management, all of those things that have to do with real estate investing that he can now take those skills and go apply it on his own rental properties. Too many young people get straight out of high school and focus only on how much they can earn and don't ever gain any valuable skills that help them in the long run. Now that's it, folks. Hope that helped. If you are looking for real estate investing coaching, make sure you go to the link in the description below, sign up for a free strategy call with the team. That way you can be on your way to finding your first deal. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Shoots!